David Nucifora confirming Munster are close to securing a head coach to succeed Rassie Erasmus. Certainly Keane Tracy today in the Irish Independent. Munster going after David Wessels, 36 years old, previously worked with Erasmus as a consultant analyst when they were with the Stormers. He's currently out of work. He's been linked with the Melbourne Rebels, but it seems Munster believed to have already identified him as the man they want to lead them. No playing career to speak of. Do we know much more about him, either of you?
Well, he did well with the Force this year. I mean, it's a wonder they have been, the Australian Rugby Union has decided to evict them from the Super Rugby Championship because they finished second in the Australian Conference. And they finished, they had a reasonable record of six wins, 9 defeats, which by Australian standards, the Super Rugby Championship was decent. My understanding, though, is that while he's a very promising coach, and he's done a good job up to now, and he comes highly recommended by Rassie Erasmus, that it's far from a done deal. That he's definitely been interviewed, he's been sought after, but the feeling in Australia is he might go to the Melbourne Rebels, and there's certainly a feeling that he might not, good source I've spoken to, that he might not actually be the man that ends up sitting in the Munster hot seat.
Okay, through his own choice as opposed to Munster's.
Yes.
Okay. Keith, Tony Ward writing today says the following. So, Munster Rugby, he's talking about what a huge brand they are. And when we have the current coach endorsing another South African currently out of a job as a potential successor ahead of a top-of-the-table clash with one of the pre-tournament favourites, then something truly is rotten in the state of Denmark. He goes on to say, I don't know David Wessels or anything about him, but when the two left holding the fort, Gerry Thornley and Felix Jones, are aged 38 and 30, to have a 36-year-old being touted to join them, presumably as the chief, is beyond comprehension. Munster deserve better than that. And the rest of his piece goes on in a similar vein. He thinks this is poor, to say the least.
Well, there's a couple of things on that. One, it was Rassie Erasmus was asked a question, what do you think of Wessels? And he says, very good guy. So does that go down as a full endorsement? I'm not entirely sure, and I haven't seen the full transcript of all of that. But we keep complaining when people don't answer the questions. But when you're asked a question, God, he's a very good guy. Munster could do worse than having him. I think was the gist of what he actually said. And who's to say that he isn't the right guy or not the right guy? And Tony doesn't like him because he's 36. So, I don't know.
Well, Tony's making the argument that between Flannery and Jones and now Wessels, they're all under 40. There is a lack of experience. His argument is that Munster, given the demands, given the expectations, deserve somebody with more experience in the coaching ticket.
He would have a lot of experience on the coaching ticket because he's a coach from a long period of time. And again, I don't know whether he's in, out or other. I know that Munster have spoken to him. I think that's been fairly widely discussed. I think it's a tough situation because and we've discussed this often, Joe, when we know that Rassie Erasmus and Jack are heading out the door at Christmas or thereabouts, that it is a big drive for Munster to try and get their next coach, and they will go and have gone through and interviewed fairly fast tracks of people to try and make certain they get to the right men or man. And I don't know where they are in that situation at the present moment in time, but I don't understand the sort of the venom from Tony saying that it's a disgrace that somebody has mentioned somebody's name and that means there's something rotten somewhere. And what's to say that a young guy is the wrong man? That's the view I'd always take on that anyway. But I don't know. I don't know anything about Wessels. I don't know whether he's good, bad, or indifferent. And the point is trying to get the required people. I think Munster were very lucky with Rassie Erasmus. I thought they found a guy who had good coaching skills, good coaching credentials, but also good managerial director of rugby credentials. I think it's quite difficult to try and find those in one person, and they did with Rassie Erasmus. And I mean, it's incumbent on Munster to try and make certain they can get the best man they possibly can for the job, but under huge pressure, under huge time scale pressures, because somebody's leaving in a few months.
Yeah, and Ward made that point. He said to have such uncertainty being the word surrounding the head coach and his second in command abandoned ship simply beggars belief. Is the uncertainty manifested in the performances on the pitch? They were beaten by Glasgow 37 points to 10 at the weekend. Gerry Erasmus himself said it was the worst performance in 40 games. It's too easy to say cause and effect. It's because of the coaching situation, I appreciate, and we have Lions coming back. Are we seeing anything on the pitch to suggest uncertainty is having an impact?
I think we could read. We're so quick to read into one or two games.
That.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we were writing off the South Africans up until last weekend. Now look what the Cheetahs did to Leinster. I think it was a very poor performance by Munster, but they were due a beating by Glasgow. My God, if any team was due to beat them, it was Glasgow. They were at home. They were comparatively fully locked and loaded.
Yeah.
Munster were, the heartbeat of their team really in Conor Murray, CJ Stander, Peter O'Mahony, as well as Zebo and Earls and other frontline players. They didn't play very well. They struggled. They do struggle, against very good sides in a high tempo. We're not able to bully them with their line-out maul and so forth, and their pick and go and their one-off runners. They do struggle with a high tempo game, and Glasgow were able to break free from their own 22 and score almost at will at times. And it was a bad beating, no doubt about it. But they'll be a different team when those frontliners come back. The only thing I would say about is, you can read too much into whether that uncertainty contributed. They were unbeaten until last weekend, and they're playing one of the best teams in the tournament, who, like I said, were due to beat them. Who is the more experienced head coach out there? There are very few coaches. It's a small rugby world globally. Most people had never heard of Michael Cheika when he came to Leinster. Most people had never heard of Joe Schmidt when he came to Leinster. Pat Lam was seriously damaged goods and rubbished when he landed in Connacht. Stuart Lancaster was rubbished in some quarters when he landed in Leinster. All have done fantastic jobs for the Irish provinces. We wait and see how Kieran Keane goes. But, the Wayne Smiths of this world are not going to drop sticks and come over and become the director of rugby at Munster. Wayne Smith's going to take a year sabbatical out of the game. And there are very few of that ilk readily available to take up a job like this, So I'd love to know who these really experienced, well-qualified, head coaches or directors of rugby are, because there's very few of them available.